This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London. All of our podcasts are available from our website, www.sas.ac.uk.
Is there a short statement that you would like to make to start off?
No, thank you. It's very disturbing, fascinating to know that it's also a very topical issue, if you like. Of course, I respect those of you who read the paper last night this morning. Yes, you know, not just got a case. There's too many parallels, really, except the children. A chill went down my spine, I suppose, as the children were smothered.
Yes.
But,
Yes, it's just that, just to reiterate, yes, I think Parker, again, is absolutely central to this discussion. I think that the failure to accept ambivalence in mothers goes across the board, and I think it's quite visible in law as well, completely visible in almost every judgment on this. And this is why you end up with the discourse of the medicalised mother or the monster. There is no in between. Or, strangely, meeting at the same point as well. And on some articles like Andrea Yates, the question is asked, is she a monster or is she just a man? Yeah, so it's just. Yeah, just. Yeah, exactly.
I was just thinking that you asked the question, right? Could anything have been done to prevent this? Would this mother have accepted help if it had been on offer? And I was thinking we're kind of catch-22 of a woman in that situation, because there's always this threat, and that's the legal threat, and it's exacerbated further if there's there are divorce proceedings on the cards that the children will be taken away. But if you admit you're not coping, that's going to be the consequence. And so if the mother feels very possessively attached, she has a reason to try to camouflage any problems she's having and to deny simply any need for help. And I think Godela showed that very well, because she mentions her social workers and all of that. And one gets the impression that she's trying to put on a brave face at them, and even though it's unspoken, I at least assumed it's because the outcome of not putting on a brave face would be removal of the children. That's something.
Yeah, that's true. I think that the support doesn't tend to kick in the legal sense, also the psychiatric sense, until you reach an absolute emergency, which is either if you make a suicide attempt, you will then normally be sectioned, and child protection procedures will then come in to look after your children. They are supposed to keep the children within the family, but frequently, once they have left the family grouping, it becomes extremely hard for you to advocate to bring your children back. However, though, sorry to go on, I think that it is quite difficult to get social services to step in. From what I hear anecdotally, you have to be in an absolutely appalling state to get any help at all. And that's another of the dilemmas. There's no help until it all goes completely wrong. And then it will be too late.
That's partly to do with funding.
Yes. Also denial, though, I think, denial that there's anything really wrong.
Yeah. Well, exactly. I was just wanting to say something about that, because I think it's more than putting on a brave face to the social workers, isn't it? It's a certain. It is a self-denial. It is a denial of the problem. I read somewhere that Olmi gave the actor who was acting in the performance gave her the advice: don't cry during the monologue. This woman has no self-awareness. She doesn't try to understand and analyze herself. She's much further in that. She's within the tragedy. And I think that's really interesting, isn't it? Can we bring in the performance aspect, maybe? Can you say something? You were there as well.
Lisa, actually.
Lisa again.
Lisa spoke. You were part of the discussion on the first evening, weren't you? I didn't go to that one, I went to the second one. But
I think I ended up saying something that went down incredibly badly. I think it's really interesting. I think that's absolutely key what you just said, to remind us of the quote from Olmi, who says this woman shows no capacity to be aware of what she's doing. There was a lot of discussion afterwards that was prompted by the discussant after the show that was about saying, because on the back cover of the novel, the publisher has said this woman kills her children out of love. And I tried to make a case that to kill out of love, you have to know what you're doing is awful. I mean, that is the sign that what you're doing is killing out of love. And there's a wonderful example that Zizek actually recently was talking about in a lecture to do with a French film during the resistance, in which some of the resistance workers had to kill a child who's betrayed the group. And they would normally shoot the child, but they can't because it's going to make too much noise, and so they smother the child. And there's a moment in the film in which they know that they're doing the most awful thing you can do, which is to take away the life of another person. And they do it anyway, and it's the fact that they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. It makes that a compassionate act. And there's something that's very disturbing, I think, about this book, which is that that is not what's present. So I would make an argument, but not, this is a book about the breakdown of ambivalence. I don't think this book is about ambivalence at all. I think Rose Parker's work is not helpful at this point. She's gone beyond the point in which ambivalence can help us understand what's going on. And that's why it's so disturbing. And I tried to make that point after the play, and everyone's like, oh my God. So I'm probably not the best, but I actually hate the play. I think it's terrible. And everyone else loved it, so I might not be the right person. I actually think the book is a really disturbing book, and it's very, very powerful and disturbing at that kind of level where we're sort of not anymore talking about manageable or unmanageable ambivalence. And I thought actually the Helen, the life presence of the actress there, although she was brilliant, couldn't manage that experience because the theatre can't disallow you, I think, effectively, to not feel empathy. And as soon as you did feel empathy, then in a way the whole project had lost its purpose, which was to show this is, for me, actually a book that was about mental illness, but about a certain psychic state that I think we're all feeling in. And I think that's what's so important. So I'm slightly tangential to this discussion.
What psychic state out of interest would you be able to put a negative at psychic state? Would you feel something like dissociation? Because I felt a lot of dissociation was going on.
No, I think precisely, I wouldn't want to. I mean, I think what was valuable about what you said, Ruth, was that we can easily find a diagnosis.
Indeed.
Really, that's not the point. That we're describing a state in which you cannot experience the world as anything other than really bad. And then you can't make a separation with any kinds of objects.
Yeah, she's in boundaries.
In the tragedy is exactly the right thing. It's not that she's in a mental illness. She's in the tragedy. So however we want to interpret what the tragedy might be. That's up to each individual to make that decision. But she's in the tragedy, and that is her psychic state. I mean, I don't have anything to say about that. A label. And it's so interesting that, the psychiatric label, she has a personality disorder, okay. She's not psychotic, but she's on the edge, we can call her borderline. We can call her narcissistic, whatever, with these features, with those features. Those are just descriptive terms. Sometimes they are helpful, actually. If we're trying to get a kind of a certain state that we can go to, which is to be inside the tragedy. But that's it.
It was read aloud on the radio 2 nights ago.
Oh, really?
In French, on the Belgian radio. I just turned on 2 nights ago, there it was saying, and it worked extremely well read aloud. I don't see the play, so I don't know how it would work visually, but just as a voice, without visuals, it was incredibly powerful. I could hardly bear to listen to it. It was almost harder than reading it than hearing it.
I mean, for me, the visual was the problem, actually, and I think you've actually just put the finger on it, and that it's about the psychic state. When I was saying, what is this text? You're there inside her, if you like, and while we might want to put those labels on, and just having the body there. And this actress has done. She's done things like the Beckett monologues and things. So, she was very good. But I just found it. It was quite funny, really, and I had to laugh at myself because she had an Irish accent, and I spent half the play sort of thinking, why are they doing it? Why are they doing it in an Irish accent? What's that supposed to, what are the implications and connotations and everything? Of course, when she got up there to discuss it, it's her own accent. She was nothing to do with anything I was wondering about. It just that sort of, having that there in a way, and I don't know you know, you had a voice, and so it was standard French. Yeah.
What were the provisions to then? Was she just standing on stage?
She had what was supposed to be a nightdress and boots, and a sort of stylised bed, was it?
No, perhaps. There was some stones on the ground, and there was some white sheet drapes. There's quite a lot of imagery around the mental institution.
I see, so they visualise her as having been later institutions.
It's a very hard thing to put up in the theatre because she's still alive, you know. And she's still alive from the beginning in the way that you're not sure when you're reading the novel whether she
Yes, indeed.
You can't quite locate how she put up with it when.
I was hoping she'd kill herself as well. Sorry.
She went against your impressions already.
On that note, I was going to ask you, you know you said that it's 50-50, this is just a character.
Yes.
But is it true, and this is probably not, but I've just got a sort of intuition that might be true, that when men kill their kids, they kill the whole family and then themselves.
Yeah.
And then women don't, they just kill the kids.
The methods are extremely, very much
So it's normally suicide and murder.
And the suffocation method is generally a feminine method. I hate there's always exceptions, there are always exceptions, you'll probably read of one very soon. But suffocation, drugging and gassing, when it used to be more possible to gas children, were the feminine methods, the quiet, go to sleep type methods. It's very much like the differentiation between male and female suicide methods as well. The violent method tending to be a male.
But
I hate that
women don't
it
kill
seems
themselves, is that right? They just kill the kids.
Well, the very strange thing is that the last few cases I looked at, there seemed to be an attempt on the half of the mother to kill herself, which failed.
Yeah.
Teresa Ridgey threw herself off a balcony, having stabbed herself in the neck several times. It didn't manage it. Well, this is why a lot of websites are saying she did never mean to do it, she was covering up, which is of course a possibility. Because this may well have been an act of murder which was then, attempted to be concealed as a filicide-suicide. But filicide, the sort of filicide-suicide where you drive your car into a lake, as one man did last year, or you shoot the entire family and then yourself, tends to be more of a male.
The woman last night tried to slash her wrists.
Yeah, and failed. She's still alive.
She didn't do it. I mean, she
didn't
wasn't
do it
taken to
properly.
hospital.
Yes.
She was in police station.
This has happened on a number of.
But a lot of the ones where the men kill their families, I mean, recently a lot of that has been tied up with debt. And
and also custody.
And the whole guilt thing, custody too.
Yeah.
There's a sort of sense that they can't really cope not being the provider, and so everyone has to go.
Which is another aspect to this whole thing, to this problem being not so much a legal problem, not so much a problem of mental state, but a problem also of the economic environment and of the social environment.
In both cases, it's gender because it's men who feel their masculinity.
Exactly.
Yes,
very much so.
breadwinners, and women who feel their femininity is being challenged.
Absolutely.
Victoria.
I just, on that, Jill, could you talk a little bit about the critical reception? Because I know, for example,
The reception
to get it published in the
novel. Yeah. Well, in France it was prize winner, bestseller, and likewise I think in Germany as well. I don't know if it won prize, but it sold very well. And as far as I haven't done research, partly because I can't read it, as to how it was received in other countries. In France, it was received very well on the whole. The reviews I've read, I would say were. I mean, they weren't setting out to judge the mother in any way, or to try and cover over or deny what was going on, or it was quite acceptable that it was a topic for a novel, and they thought she executed it very well. And all this these aren't very in-depth reviews; they're just sort of newspaper reviews.
Why do you think they couldn't get it out in England?
Well, I think there's two issues. I mean, the publisher, what's her name? She's very convinced it was the topic, and that it was hard to place. She did the translation, so I'm looking at Emily because you were there too, and you know quite a lot about it. I think she did the translation some years back, she did the translator, and then was trying to place it, and couldn't get anyone to take it. I have to say, I think, you know, yes, I think, I mean, it may have just been the subject matter, but I have to say that I know that French literature is quite difficult to place anyway. And I remember one of the people who was at the French Institute who was responsible for trying to get French texts translated into English and dealing with all the publishers, telling me that often, you know, what happens, there's a lot of sort of abstract novels in France, and basically they won't take them into English publishers because they say they're too French.
I think it's
Which there's a sort of perception of what French novel is, and so I think that, you know, when it's a short novel like this, there's a sort of sense that it's not a substantial. So I'm not totally convinced that it's wholly to do with the fact that it was the subject matter. I think it's a part of the climate of what doesn't. I mean, now it's quite nice. There's quite a few specialist publishers opened up, including Micah's, that are starting to put out translations of French texts. So, but she did say that the reception of it in the UK wasn't so great. Again, her criticism was that people didn't say what it was about. I think that happened too in French. Sometimes it's a chilling read, or it's a, you know, so you sort of set up that it's a very sinister, maybe a sinister book, that something happens. But a part of reviewers, they don't always want to spoil it for the readers who spoil it. But you know, in actual fact, I don't think it would, because that text is, I mean, they may decide people to read it or not read it. But I think there is a sense with reviewers that you don't necessarily tell people the sort of plot. So I think, I don't think there were loads of reviews. I think I did see one in the Independent as Guardian. They weren't great, but.
When you think of a really canonical novel in French, like L'étranger, L'étranger, Camus,
Yes.
L'étranger. When you think that starts off with, you know, last night, my mother died.
Yes.
And at the end of that, he didn't kill his mother, but it was his failure to express, in fact to feel or to express emotion about her death that led to him being judged at the end.
Yes.
And this novel, it's almost the opposite. It's the mother killing the son. It's still the mother-son thing, but she also, it's first-person narration. She is not setting out to persuade us. I think there's no suggestion of her. She's very lucid, but there's no rhetorical attempt to persuade us. I would think, Ruth. It's not like giving evidence in that sense.
Not at all, no.
And yet we're very well. I totally accept her. You know, I just could not bring myself to judge her at all for any of it. I mean, even when she had the small sort of desire with Stan, she said, "Oh, why didn't we just struggle together there and get it all out of my system?" Even I got the impression that was probably to do with her meds. You know, that she hadn't taken them, and I just found her completely convincing. And I'm sort of, I have to even a point to make, except that I'm intrigued by the comparison with such a very important novel, you know, in French literature, the mother-son thing, and the first-person statement without trying to persuade the literature. And I really buy it in the case of this novel, and then we don't in the case of L'étranger.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't made that connection, but it's very, very interesting. And of course, you've got the whole trial.
Yeah,
is part of that text. I mean, there's another French. As I say, this hers is one of several that have been dealing with that over the past decade. And there's another one which does have a trial in, but the trial's sort of taking place out. You're not party to the trial. She's waiting to hear the sentence or the outcome. But one thing I will say about there's quite a lot of the texts that have been, like novels that have been written about mothers murdering their children. Maybe it's typical French as well. They put the so that's why I quite like Olmi's, because you don't really know anything about her background. I mean, there's her father's mentioned once, my brother's mentioned, mother's not mentioned at all, but nearly all the others, they put the problem with the mother's mothering with the mother, the fact that she was not mothered well herself. I mean, that's not answering the question about...
She's forgotten her
mother. Yeah.
She says she's forgotten.
Yeah.
She has blanked that out.
Yeah.
For some reason.
And there's also various things like I'm saying, you don't really know. It just serves to complicate things. It's things you get little things like she's broken her collarbone, she's got no teeth. You know, there's the thing of the father and the songs. And, you know, you can just sort of invent loads and loads and loads of reasons for her being in the situation she is. But I think it's very clever because you just don't know, and you're confronted with that all the time. So you can't. I mean, you can make up. I mean, yes, what she's done is wrong. But, you know, you're not asked to condone what she's done at all either. But
I'm slightly aware we're running out of time. There were 2 more or 3 more questions. Perhaps we have very quick questions. Sorry to but can we have very quick questions? Then go and get the cups of tea, coffee, and come straight back in and go into the final session. Would that be all right, Abigail?
If I have about 1 minute.
I think we just literally, but maybe really quick questions.
It wasn't actually a question, but it was just picking up on what you were saying. I think one of the reasons why she becomes such a sympathetic character is also because of the other characters that she gets in touch with throughout the narrative are so despicable. And that reminded me as well of the question of responsibility that Ruth was talking about. And although it's a very slim thread in the narrative, I do think that there is some sort of responsibility towards that family that is not fulfilled throughout the whole narrative. I mean, everyone they meet is absolutely horrible. And I kept thinking, why don't you do anything? It's obvious that these kids are cold, that they haven't eaten, but they are still treated as nothing really. So, and I think that also makes you more understandable towards that families or towards the mother in particular.
Yeah, linking in with that, there was one small detail which I found really moving in the book, where she talks about the social worker visiting and how she's got this wall which she reserved for her child to draw on. And I thought, if this was a mother without any problems, it would be seen as a fantastic thing to do. But she kind of says she could tell that the social worker disapproved. And this was a sign that in fact there was
creativity. Absolutely. Do you remember the bit where she laughs and she said, social workers don't like it when you laugh, because once she asked me a question I started laughing. It's the wrong response.
Yes.
Yeah, whereas you can really understand an outbreak of hysteria, at least a ridiculous question.
Exactly.
Well, I wanted to say something, but actually it's along the same lines, in the sense that the text has eliminated a lot, or almost all of the history of this woman. So we are seeing her in that context of these 2 days at the resort, where everything conspires against her. And the biggest thing that annoyed me about that novel is the weather. Because there is a glimpse there that perhaps a more, a change in that weather would bring out there are signs there that when they go to the fair, for example, she's happy and she
I thought she was going completely crazy.
there is a moment when there is something emerges there that she feels she is doing something good for the children are happy, and then the rain comes down even worse, and then you're right to say everybody there is beastly to them. This girl knocks the child down with the chicks. So, and I understand that this is not because the author wants to completely, put the world against her. It is symbolic of the fact there is no way out, that she cannot combat anything, because every little thing actually adds more and more, and that is because we are seeing also the world from inside her head.
Yes,
so probably those people are not beastly after all. But there is still some sense in that book that, I feel, isn't there nothing in this world that can make her switch, to a better mood? And the writer is wanting to completely, give her no way out. But maybe this is because there is no way out for these people. So for me, I actually did not, I did not sympathize with her. It really annoyed me when she killed the children. I wouldn't justify her in any way. With this, I'm not saying that the book is not convincing, because in the end, I come out and say, my God, I can understand now a bit, probably, if it is plausible from a psychological point of view, from if one analyzes psychosis and all that, being put in what goes on in the mind of a person, because we have no idea about mental, illness or disturbed, personalities, and I think this is actually literature can give us such an insight, because we are in the middle of a lot of mental illness at the moment.
I think